welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Jets Flight Path. As always, I'm Brian, and joining me is Paul. Going right into it, a more eventful week this week than last. We start off with the Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh press conference from a couple of days ago, and just preceding the press conference, like the night before, we had Marcus May's agent. Now, Marcus May is probably the best player the Jets have who is heading into free agency, outside of Mekhi Becton and Quinton Williams. And he could be franchise tagged, but his agent went to Twitter and responded to Field Yates, who was quote tweeting himself, Rich Samini, who had an article or had a tweet, about Henry Anderson eventually getting or being the cap casualty. We'll get to that in a bit. Field Yates saying that the Jets could have $80 million in cap space by the time free agency begins, and we'll get a bit into that as well. And Marcus May's agent responds to Field Yates and says, and I quote, "Yet refuse to take care of their best player," talking about the Jets, "captain and team voted MVP in his prime, who had several All-Pro votes, and who played out his entire rookie deal and even changed positions on his contract year after they got rid of last year's All-Pro safety." Now, with this, that's very unprofessional for an agent to go to Twitter like that. But Joe Douglas basically responded like, it is what it is. Kind of like it's part of the negotiating process, and he didn't seem all that miffed about it in his press conference there.
Well, Marcus May, he's 28 years old, and he's in the prime of his career. As we all know, he was drafted as a 24-year-old out of Florida, so he got into the league a little late.
Yeah.
And typically, safeties fall off after 30 years old. So the Jets are expected to put the franchise tag on him, which will give him a contract of 11 million, roughly $11 million, for the franchise tag year, and then who knows after that. But he'll be 29 when he's negotiating a second contract. And you know what? Although he didn't do it in the most professional of ways, I
Mm-hmm.
tend to agree with Marcus May's agent.
Yeah. I mean, the Jets need to show, uh, loyalty, and they need to retain Marcus May by any means necessary. I think, you know, tagging him is probably the best route at this point, just because it buys him time. He's going to get paid. I think it's not out of the question. You did say, you did make a good point that safeties over 30, they kind of hit, kind of like with running backs, they hit a wall a bit. But I think May's earned it. To give him a 3 to 4 year deal, nothing crazy. He's a good part of the defense, and you want to have him back. But that's something. We're about 2 weeks away from the beginning of free agency, so we'll see how Joe Douglas and them proceed. Another thing that was mentioned in Joe Douglas's press conference, I believe Brian Costello asked a question. Jets GM responded in regards to getting calls on Sam Darnold. He says, and I quote, "I will answer the call if it's made. We think Sam is a dynamic playmaker in this league with dynamic talent, but if calls are made, I will answer them." Um, this is to be expected. With the speculation that the Jets are after Watson or after even Russell Wilson and what they're going to do at number two, this, is not surprising whatsoever, but kind of just perhaps opens the floodgates a bit more for other teams like who may not have called the Jets about Darnold's availability. Maybe speeds up the process a little bit more.
Well, it's interesting. Alex Smith was just released today by Washington.
Mm.
They really don't have a backup quarterback.
They don't have a starter either.
They don't. Yeah, but I guess maybe they're looking at Heskey as their starter.
I don't know about that.
Maybe they
As
take a
competition.
flyer. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they take a flyer on Sam Darnold. They move a first or a second and maybe a conditional first for Darnold. I think that might be the way to go for the Jets after seeing what happened with Carson Wentz.
Hmm.
Uh, Wentz was expected to go for a first as well. However, Nobody around the league, took that bait. I guess we can say.
Right.
And Indianapolis said it's a conditional second that could turn into a first. So I could definitely see something similar happening along the lines with the Jets and Washington, where okay, if Sam wins 9 games this year, or if he throws for you know 3,200 yards, 3,500 yards, that second turns into a first. And if that's the case, I would jump all over that because
Yeah. Get what you can.
it right. And the Darnold market is a little it's a little I don't want to say skeptical. It's a little fishy. I mean, yeah, there are quarterback needy teams out there, but you look at free agency. There's a lot of high quality free agent quarterbacks out there as well. As just mentioned, Alex Smith is out there for a stopgap quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Cam Newton, and Jameis Winston. So there are options, and the Jets really can't be choosers when it
Well,
comes to Darnold.
you're right, but I think like as you mentioned before, with Washington, that's definitely the perfect fit because where they're picking, they're going to miss out on the top quarterbacks, and like as you just mentioned, they just released Alex Smith, so they're not just going to roll in to the 2021 season with Taylor Heineke. So giving up, like you said, a package of like their second round this year and a conditional first next year for Darnold based on his performance or whatever. I think that's the way to go. I just get something of value. I saw a rumor that some other team, I forget who, was offering like a six rounder or something, but I don't know how true. If there's any truth to that, Rappaport or Schefter didn't report on anything being made like that. But Darnold's definitely worth more than a six rounder. But he might not be worth straight up a first rounder at this point. But if he could get a second rounder, which many Jets fans were heading into the offseason thinking uh, that we'd end up getting for him, that's more than fine. But again, that's something we're going to have to, at this point, wait and see. It's all speculation. But another key aspect of the Douglas presser, and Saleh's presser too. Saleh was talking about how well he's getting along with Joe Douglas and how communication is a big component of that and the vision that they see for this team in the future. But Joe Douglas, and we know about this um, when he was hired, from his time in Baltimore, spent under Ozzie Newsome, from his time spent in Philadelphia. Uh, his focus is building through the draft and supplementing that with free agency. Now, he did mention that there's, if one particular free agent, of course, he didn't, show his cards. That would be dumb. Um, so I'm trying to wrap my head around who could be that one free agent that's like sticking out to the Jets management right now that they're like really targeting and have all this money. Besides obviously the potential rumor, the speculation with Watson and Wilson, blah blah blah, via trade. In free agency alone, who is that one guy?
I mean, you've been a bigger proponent of this. I think it's got to be Richard Sherman, who I think is it's all but guaranteed coming over. I think Allen Robinson, if we're gonna play
Yeah.
the obvious target, who I think we'll get into that and a little bit later in the show. But I think. I think it's going to be somebody that comes out of left field, to be completely honest with you. Somebody that
Hmm.
we don't have, or that when we talked about free agency, didn't really peg up as as
as
like
as a target.
as a target. Yeah, thank you for completing my sentence there. I'm a little scatterbrained tonight.
I,
But who knows? It could even be Joe Thuney, where he backs up a Brinks truck and
that's what I'm
you
thinking
know.
that like it could be like a top free, maybe not Thony, maybe it's Sheriff that the Jets like a bit more. Like I think it's a one of the top free agent O linemen. Like at least one of them, I feel the Jets will get, regardless of position. Maybe it's Corey Linsley. I mean, we don't know, but I think with Douglas's background, being a former offensive lineman himself, and how he stresses the importance of building from within in the trenches and then outwards, it has to be one of these top tier O linemen.
Yeah, it just makes sense. I had a discussion the other day with a bunch of buddies I went to school with. A few of them are Jet fans,
Hmm.
and my one buddy, yeah, we got to draft Wilson, we got to draft a quarterback, whatever. The other one was talking about drafting the tackle from Oregon. I don't want to butcher his name.
Penny Sewell.
Yes, and I made the argument that since coming over from Seattle, since Joe Douglas signed him, George Fant hasn't been bad. He's actually
Oh,
been
he's
pretty
solid.
decent. He's been a solid right tackle, and you can almost cannot it's maybe a reach. You can almost compare him to Woody when they signed him back in
Ooh,
2008. A nice stopgap tackle, and really that Jets line is maybe just a left guard away or a center away from being actually pretty competent.
yeah,
Uh,
I think it's more the interior that's the issue because we
right.
know Becton's locked down at the blind side, and yeah, Fant. There's I really doubt that Fant is one of the cap casualties. I know I've seen some articles um, saying that obviously they all listed like at the top Henry Anderson, but now we'll get into that in a sec. But they keep constantly list like Jameson Crowder and George Fant, but I really can't see those guys being moved unless it's for like draft picks. But I can't see anybody trading for them. Crowder's entering his final year of a deal. He's getting paid $10 million, but regardless, if the Jets keep Crowder, they're still going to have 80 plus, possibly even 85 million in cap space. So there's no need to take away from whoever is the starting quarterback. And Fant, like you said, he was solid. Like compared to the other guys like Van Rotten or McGovern, who kind of had an up and down year. Some weeks they were just wretched, and then other weeks they looked really good. Fant was solid when he was on the
Yeah.
field. So
Well,
I'd like to keep him.
and not to mention they have that fifth round tackle that they drafted. Who's it? Cameron
Yes.
Clark. Who he didn't play a snap last year. In fact, I don't think he was active at all. Which goes to show. I guess he was more of a project that they wanted to mold and get NFL ready before they
Hmm.
gave him, snaps. So I mean, right tackle is pretty much locked down. And going back to your point on Crowder, I said I think it would be a mistake to release him because at least over the last 5 years, the Jets have just made, and I shouldn't say the Jets, McCagnon has just, in Robbie Anderson's defense, you know, undrafted talent out of Temple. In the beginning of his career, he was just known as a deep threat guy. I'm sorry, but as he got around and got more experience, he became a better route runner. He's 100 pounds soaking wet, but he could take a beating.
Right.
And I think it was a mistake for letting him go. And the Jets just seem to just let players go, or he's making too much. Yeah, we got to cut him. Like this is not the Oakland A's of the
Demario
money ball.
Davis was the biggest
Yeah,
whiff I feel like in the last 5 years.
absolutely, absolutely. It's time that they start, paying players or keeping players around that, getting rid of them in free agency or just trading them away. You know, it
Right.
you know,
Who were
it,
loyal, like because that was the thing in years past too. And we mentioned this last week when we were talking about jerseys and how over the years the Jets under various regimes were very unloyal to players who've been around forever, like Sean Ellis and Jericho Cotchery and David Harris, and then they would end up going elsewhere and murdering the Jets. Uh,
well,
it's
the one that really, really upsets me. I'm sorry, not one, two that really upset me that they just let get away. Jonathan Vilma and Kerry
yeah.
Rhodes. There were absolutely no reason
Kerry
for
Rose
them to just.
because Rex Ryan had a problem with him with his
But
attitude, which was just dumb. That's just
there was
Rex ego.
absolutely no reason for them to go.
Yeah,
They
Kerry
were
Rhodes was very good. Jonathan Vilma, I believe they traded, didn't they? Or am I mistaken with John Abraham? I
John Abraham was traded. I think Vilma,
They just
if
let walk
I think they just let him walk because he went to.
New Orleans and
You
had
know
a
what? Now you got me second guessing. I think he might have been traded to New Orleans.
let's go to Google real quick.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he was traded. So they drafted him. And what's crazy about Vilma, he was a he was a fucking part of that disgusting 2001 Miami team that won that national championship. So he was excuse me, he was drafted in '04 in the first round. In 2005, he led the NFL in tackles with 169, four forced fumbles, and he had an interception.
That team went 4-12. Was one of the worst Jets teams
Yes.
I've ever seen, and Vilma was the lone bright spot.
And in 2008, the Jets traded Vilma to New Orleans for a fourth round pick. Um,
Oof.
yeah. So I mean, that was that. I mean, Eric Mangini wasn't a great head coach, but I will say, that was probably his one mistake, getting rid of him.
In terms of like management,
And
you know,
outside of that, I thought Eric Mangini, the Jets gave him a raw deal too.
well,
He only really had 2 years.
apparently he like told off Woody, and that was like the end
And
of
you know
that.
what? You know what? Again, looking back on it, and it's easy to say in retrospect. It sounds like I'm a big defender of Jets pass coaches, but you look at Herm Edwards, who he honestly, if you
Mm.
had to look at it, probably the second best, or I'm sorry, the third best head coach he ever had. Um,
Ooh.
well, I mean, you had Weebu Bank, obviously a Super
Mm-hmm.
Bowl winning coach, and then you got to put Parcells up there,
Yeah,
and
the
then
short time he was there, just turned around a
yeah,
complete dog
it's
shit team
just
into a
yeah.
championship contender.
Yeah, and then Herm Edwards, who he had the Jets consistently battling. They were consistently a decent team, and he was a great motivator. I know it's easy to say Rex Ryan was the third best. Yeah, they're back-to-back AFC title games. But after those two title games,
It was a
really,
nosedive.
which were really Eric Mangini drafted teams and put together teams, he just fell flat on his face.
Yep.
Going back to Mangini, the guy knew how to scout talent. The guy knew how to put together a team, and the Jets were a young team, and he just unfortunately never got that. He never got the chance to have his vision come together.
No, and it's a shame he's kind of been blackballed, or maybe he has no interest. I'm not sure because he was with Cleveland, and as a head coach, yeah, Mangini as a head coach wasn't that great. But in terms of having him in a draft room, I don't see why he's not, unless he has no interest of his own to be there with some organization. I think he was with San Francisco for a minute, but
He was.
it really is surprising because like you look at those drafts, like that's not Tannenbaum. Because you look at Tannenbaum's drafts after Mangini. Now Mangini, with Tannenbaum together, they did have Vernon Golson. But to be fair, everyone at the time would have taken Vernon Golson. Like that's one of those misses that everyone would have missed on. But looking at like he drafted Revis, he drafted Mangold, Ferguson, Brad Smith, Leon Washington, like so many good players,
Right, right.
and it's just and coached them up pretty well as well. But it just in the end didn't work out. But similarly, Joe Douglas is about building through the draft. Now there's some patience with that, so we're basically year two of Douglas in his draft because his first year he didn't draft. He didn't draft like that was McCagnon's, and then they canned him. So this is Joe Douglas's second draft, and as he states, when you look at successful organizations, you don't see a lot of teams build long-term success by buying their way out of it. The teams that have long-term success, they draft well and develop their players. That's the key second part. Because like you just mentioned with Mangini, they drafted well, but it didn't all come together in terms of development on the field. So with that, you're hoping with Robert Saleh, he's coming in, fresh face, very energetic, respected around the league. We know that. Like everyone speaks so highly of Robert Saleh, and hopefully, this is what leads to success for the green and white. Speaking of which, the Jets just cut Henry Anderson a few days ago and saved about $8 million in cap space. They now have $75 million in cap. I believe now they are second, right behind Jacksonville, just like in a draft. Great for us. And you look at right now, because I had the sports track I was looking at earlier. In terms of who the Jets are paying, other than Darnold and Crowder, it's not a whole lot. George Fant, obviously, but there's no reason to cut him. As we just mentioned, he was very solid at right tackle, and you're just causing more problems there. Quentin Williams is getting paid. C.J. Mosley is obviously getting paid. They're not moving Connor McGovern. I believe he'll be the center unless they do go after Corey Lindsey. If one of these two were to be cut, Paul, who do you think would be the cap casualty next? Would it be Alex Lewis or Greg Van Roten?
Well, you took it right out of my mouth. Alex Lewis, I think, is the way to go, especially if they're going to go after Thunny. Uh, yeah, Van Rotten doesn't have a dead cap at all, but it's only 3 million as opposed to what is it? The
5 million.
five point
Lewis.
two million that you save cutting Alex Lewis, and that money can go to maybe overpaying Thunny a little bit more, or trying to get that Allen Robinson, just pry him away from Chicago, because the position the Jets are in, it's a great position. Don't get me wrong; they're very flexible in terms of what they can do to make this a competitive ball club. However, they may not be the number one choice on some free agents list just because of
Um,
they're a bottom barrel team and
well, in terms of competing right away,
right.
but in terms of in the end, it is all about the money. So,
Right.
and
Oh, well,
you can't go wrong with the New York market. You can go wrong with the Jets, of course, but the New York market presents opportunities that a lot of other locales don't. And this is a team with a brighter future. Adam Gase is no longer there. There is the Jets do have
it seems like
some.
there's competency around that
Yes,
organization now. And I don't know if you've been following or if you follow Woody Johnson on Twitter, but
that's not
ever
Woody
since he,
Johnson.
I know, but ever since he came back from England, that Twitter account's been a little more active, and he's just
Hmm.
posting like jet jet clips of like, for example, he put Brandon Marshall going up and grabbing a touchdown pass that was like 8 feet over his head, and he'll
Yep,
tweet, "We need more of this," or
we do. Stay out of the way, and we'll get
yeah,
more of this.
or Curtis Martin running a 70-yard screen into a touchdown. He goes, "I want to see more of this." Like, I don't know what the point of that is. I don't know if he's trying to win back over the Jets fan base, or
Yeah.
if he's just putting over like, okay, like I want to win now, kind of like a Leon Hess kind of thing towards the end of his life, where he
Oh, you think what he's about done? What he's going on the death list this year? He's kicking the
Oh
bucket.
Christ! Oh no! Oh no! No, but towards the end of Leon Hess's life, for the
Hmm.
most part of his ownership, Leon Hess, the man was a fucking oil tycoon. Obviously, if you live in Jersey or New
Yep.
York and parts of Pennsylvania, you're familiar with the Hess gas stations,
The Hess
and
truck is back,
obviously.
and it is better than ever.
Yeah,
Every
very good. I'm
Christmas time.
glad to hear that. I used to get those little those collectors trucks they put out. I used to have
Yes,
like 3 or 4 of them. However, whatever happened to those, I don't know.
they
But
still make them. Hess no longer
it
exists, but they still make Hess trucks apparently.
right. So it was more of like a hobby thing to him, like something that he could like. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the game and blah 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 blah. But towards the end of his life, okay, it's time for just to win a title and he tried to make the moves. Like he brought in a Rich Kotite who I mean he
Didn't work
was
out, but he corrected.
it
He
didn't work
brought
out.
in he brought in Bill Parcells and told him please save
A-
this team.
and he was handing out blank checks to, okay, whatever you need, I will do. And it looks like after this offseason, looks like Chris Johnson finally got the message, and hopefully Woody does as well. That, hey, we got a no nonsense guy in the front office, and Joe Douglas, the man has a vision.
Yep.
He's already started to put that vision together. Maybe it's best we just sign the checks and shut up, because the best thing to do if you want to make more money than ever as an owner who doesn't know anything about football, unless you're Jerry Jones, just shut up, sign the checks, and let your guys do the job. And then
The Robert Kraft way. Robert
once
Kraft. No, I mean Robert Kraft was a fan growing up of the Patriots and everything, and bought them in the late '80s or early '90s when they were considering
I
moving
think
to
it was the early.
Patriots.
I think it was like the mid '90s. Might have been the late '90s.
No, I think it was a
I'm
bit
pretty
earlier
sure
than
it was the
that.
late '90s.
I'm not could check that. Let's Jamie, if you
Yeah, I
could pull up
think
the stats on that
I wanna
research.
I wanna say he bought the team in '98 or '99.
That late. That's
I'm pretty sure. But
um
anyway,
yeah, no, but like with Robert Kraft, he other than in recent times after they've already won about like 4 or 5 Super Bowls, the only time he got involved was to basically uh satisfy like Tom Brady and
right,
went over Bill Belichick and said we got to get rid of
we
Garoppolo
gotta keep him.
and
Yeah,
we got to keep Brady. Um, and okay, yeah, as executive, he was a Patriots owner since '94. So yeah, mid '90s. You're
yeah,
right. But yeah, he kind of said because the Patriots were terrible before Robert Kraft showed up. Like they only
of
had that
course.
one Super Bowl trip and got smacked up by the '85 Bears. They were not a good team at all. And then once he got
Yeah,
there, turned things around, brought in Pete Carroll. They obviously had Drew Bledsoe at the time, and then they eventually got Bill Belichick, and the rest is history, as I said. But Kraft usually stays out of it, other than recent times, because I think maybe we got all these Super Bowls now. It's got to his head, kind of like with Jerry Jones. Like Jerry Jones thinks that he won the Super Bowls and not Jimmy Johnson, but like with Woody, it's like just you're paying Joe Douglas $6 million a year. You just signed Robert Sal, one of the best coaching hires uh, in this cycle. Let them come together, and obviously you had Douglas, and this was the first time that I can recall in our lives that a Jets GM hired the coach and
yeah.
it wasn't a odd couple pairing or we're going to hire the coach then hire the GM or we're going to force the GM to keep the coach and hold over. No, or the owner intervening and it's like, what about this guy? No, GM was like, this is the guy. Signed a check, boom. And like you said, that has to be the mentality as we, in 2 weeks' time, head into free agency. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, a particular free agent, Richard Sherman, who is still hovering around with the Jets. And I think, and I pegged a few episodes back as being the obvious pick, maybe on a 1-2. He says he wants to play 2 more years. Give him a 2-year deal. I think I don't know what's fair. Maybe 2 years, 18 million. Give him like a
Yeah, that's about fair.
yeah, give him like a 10, 11 million guaranteed, something like that, and boom, have him line up opposite
And
of Bryce Hall, and there you go.
and with well, and that's the thing I was gonna say with how young that secondary is, and I've been seeing a lot of Bryce Hall love lately on Twitter, and I love to see it because
Hmm.
from what we've seen in his rookie year, he could potentially be a top 10 cornerback
Yeah,
if
if it
everything
develops
goes
right.
well, if that ankle holds up and he develops well. So, in what better way would be to you know, help a young guy along and bring in a veteran like Richard Sherman,
A
who
future Hall of
he's been
Famer.
banged up with. He's been Hall of Famer has been banged up with injuries, but he had to change the way he approached the game, more of a
Right.
zone cornerback now as opposed to a man in his
He had to go like
earlier part
he
of
had
his career.
to Andy Pettit it in a way by
Yeah,
instead I'm not going to dominate you by blowing you away with 95, 96 anymore. I'm going to
I'm
just
gonna put a little twist on my
yeah, I'm going to
fastball,
yeah, I'm
punch
going
you out at 92.
gonna trick you a bit. So that's
Yeah.
that's what separates the greats, and having that mentorship would definitely help Hall. But another potential free agent that was also mentioned that we spoke of highly before, and who I personally like. I know you would prefer Chris Godwin, but that is one whole Allen Robinson III, former Jacksonville Jaguar, current, well, probably former Chicago Bear, unless they do end up trading for Russell Wilson, uh, continues to like tweets related to the Jets. There's photoshops of him in Jets uniform with Deshaun Watson, and one particular tweet by at U Stadium, who guys run that account as also Jet fans. You love to see it. Who proposed a crazy idea. The Bears tag Allen Robinson, and the Jets trade Sam Darnold for Robinson, and the Jets sign Robinson to a long-term deal. He favored that or liked that tweet. Um, I would absolutely do that. I think Allen Robinson is a tremendous player. He's highly underrated and has had dog shit at quarterback his entire career, and he was recently on this past week with Richard Sherman on Chris Collinsworth podcast, talking very highly of potential number 2 overall selection Zach Wilson. Um, and you could just see Richard Sherman like nodding his head, like "Yup, yup." Like they know something that obviously the fans up here don't. And it, I am fully on board. I'm hoping that we saw last year how Douglas and you mentioned with Robbie Anderson let him walk, and they kind of signed Brashard Perriman as a cheap 1-year replacement. That obviously didn't work out. Now you don't need superstar receivers to win in this league, to win Super Bowls. However, it doesn't help to have a top 15, top 12 receiver to help whoever your quarterback is um, starting week 1. And I think getting Allen Robinson, along with the obvious and Sherman, and whoever they end up getting in free agency at to help the offensive line, I think it's a necessity at this point. Like they need to go get Allen Robinson.
Yeah. I mean, you summed it up perfectly. What better way to, again, another thing with the Jets, they just, going back to Sanchez. Actually, I can't even say that. I can't even say that because Sanchez had some help at receiver. Um, going back to Geno. I remember Geno for a while. Granted, it wasn't a great quarterback, but really didn't have any receivers to throw to.
David
And then,
Nelson, Chaz
yeah,
Shillings,
like
Jordan Hill, Stephen Hill.
it
Not good.
not good at all. And I mean, really, the last time the Jets had a pretty dominant receiving core is about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when they had the tandem of Big Dick Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall,
Yes.
and that was and even outside of that, their slot guy who he will not be named on this podcast. Uh, he was okay.
Who is a
He's
great Jericho Cotchery replacement. Fantastic jet.
Yeah, all right, whatever. That's why nobody ever talks about him anymore.
uh,
No, but I mean, if you're gonna draft a quarterback at number 2, go out and get him some guy who can give him some confidence
right,
and
whoever it
you
is.
know
Don't just feed him. Just don't throw him to the wolves like you do with every quarterback, and don't
yeah.
develop. Like I have faith in Saleh and especially Mike LaFleur in developing if they go the route of drafting a quarterback there at 2, whether it's Wilson or Fields or whoever, um, give them some help. Don't like the rest of them. Like even you mentioned Sanchez. Sanchez at the beginning, his top receiver, Holmes came in 2010, and they only traded for Braylon after they realized, oh crap, all we have for our rookie quarterback is basically Dustin Keller and like David Clowney at receiver or who Chancey. No, they didn't have Chancey. Who was the Jets receivers in 2009 when Sanchez started? Jericho Cotchery. It was literally Jericho Cotchery doing
Yeah,
everything. And you can't have as
yeah,
much as great as Cotchery is, beloved and everything. You can't have him do everything.
right.
So go out, get Robinson and Godwin and Smith Schuster and Galladay and Corey Davis. Sign them all. You have the money. It's get the best receiving core in the game. But seriously, the Jets need to get one of these top receivers. And
Yeah,
as we mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, Douglas is emphasizing building through the draft and supplementing with free agency. But this is a very barren team. You take a look at the roster. The top guy is entering the final year of his contract, and he's a slot receiver getting paid only $10 million. Now that's probably going to change this offseason once the Jets pay Marcus May, but still, you need to help your rookie quarterbacks. You need to build through the trenches, as the Jets have been shown to do under this new regime. Now it's time to start hitting the outside a bit. Um, with that said, before we go into the rule changes that listed that we're going to talk about with the Bills and Ravens organizations proposing for the NFL, a recent, um, actually this morning, caught it late, thing was said by Jason Shepard on Twitter, who said Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk said that the Jaguars have conducted 2 of the maximum 5 Zoom interviews with Zach Wilson already, and that Jacksonville quarterback coach Brian Schottenheimer spent time this week talking with John Beck about Wilson. Now, here's the thing. Last night, and I swear, I'm not a person that dreams often. That like has dreams, like or night terrors, whatever. Like I just go to
Right.
sleep and then I wake up and it's morning. Like I sleep like a rock. There's nothing going on in my head usually.
Oh, that's not good.
That's a neurological problem. I need to see a doctor. But last night I had a weird dream that I was in some sprawling East Coast city. Uh, it
Ooh.
it wasn't New York. It was kind of like L.A., but it
Like
wasn't
a
L.A.
like a second-rate city, like
I,
Philadelphia.
but a bit more spread out Philadelphia, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
like that. And
Emphasis on the second rate.
I'd say yes. I was I was living in an apartment complex in a weird like cubicle like futuristic type apartment. Weird sci-fi type thing. And I guess it was like a party or something. I had people I never knew come over to my house. Apparently they're my friends, whatever. Then this portal opened up. I shit you not. This portal opened up. I step on through with these people, and it's like the sky is all like gray and everything, and all the colors are all weird, and it's like the same exact world. I'm in the apartment again, but everything's just a bit off, kind of like a Willy Wonkaville whatever.
Okay.
And lo and behold, I look on the television, nice big 80-inch, I'm assuming, a big screen TV,
Okay.
and can you take a guess, Paul, as who's in a New York Jets uniform playing football for the for the Jets?
Gotta be Trey Lance.
Wrong. It was Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's coming back.
Oh
No,
God.
no.
Oh.
Trevor Lawrence is a New York Jet
Oh.
and was slinging the rock around. He was wearing the green. It was the Gotham green over the white tops. And primetime game. It was nighttime now, or at the time, whatever. This dream, fucking Inception scenario that I'm losing my mind with. And could it possibly happen again, where the Jets were we all thought, well, I guess yeah, it's not going to be definitely not going to be Allen. Is it going to be Rosen or is it going to be Baker? Oh my God, the Browns took Baker Mayfield. Oh my God, the Giants took a running back because they're stupid, and the Jets landed with Sam Darnold. Could it happen again that the
uh,
Jacksonville Jaguars, and I know I've said this before, are so stupid to pass up on Trevor Lawrence to buy the gas of Zach Wilson and pass up on Lawrence, and Lawrence falls right into the Jets' lap? How great would that be?
Dude,
Listen, I
I,
dreamed it. It's happening.
I really hope so. Because if not, we're
Put
gonna have to
electrodes
fight.
on my head. Well, you know what's weird?
You
The
know
other
what?
day,
Maybe.
I like I believe on Sunday I did have a dream. I don't know. Are the Chiefs playing the Jets or Giants this year at MetLife? I think they play the Jets, but I'm
Uh,
not sure they play at the Jets or
well, we
not.
played the Chiefs this past year, so
Right.
we played the AFC West in rotation. So no, we will not be playing the Chiefs this year. I think they might be playing the Giants though.
Let's
If
see here.
they 2021 opponents for the Chiefs. So in addition to the AFC West division opponents, they will be taking on the AFC North, the NFC East, and the first place finishers from the AFC South and the AFC East. So they will be playing the Giants.
Hmm.
However, they will be playing the Giants at home.
Okay.
Uh,
Because the weird thing about that is I had a dream that the Chiefs were playing at MetLife and Pat Mahomes, God forbid, tore his ACL. I don't know
could
why
be in the
during this, but it
could
happened.
be in the AFC title game when we.
That's a possibility. The Jets hosting the AFC title game. We're smacking up the Chiefs. They try to lead a comeback, and unfortunately, the best quarterback in the league tears his ACL. Listen, I'm not saying I'm Nostradamus here. I'm just saying Trevor Lawrence is going to be a New York Jet.
You know
And
what? That's a very, very bold prediction, and listen. I hope you're right. I really do. Because I was reading into this as well, and again, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Mhm.
Remember when we heard like, oh, there's a team that has Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence on their big board, and we were like, no way, this is just.
Oh
And then we
boy.
hear Urban Myers is going to Jacksonville, and he might not be so high on Trevor Lawrence, and it might be Justin Fields and now we're
Yeah, we
hearing
were to
Zach Wilson, and don't get me
obviously
wrong,
the
they're
connection. Continue,
the
Paul. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, they're doing due diligence. The Jacksonville Jaguars, as you so eloquently put it on Madden when we play, they're doing due diligence, and it would be irresponsible for them to, nope, we're going Trevor Lawrence, we're going Trevor Lawrence. So they're okay, Wilson, what can you do? And then okay, Justin Fields, tell me about this, and so they're doing their scouting like all teams should be. But Brian, if if they take Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence, I this will probably be the greatest victory the Jets have had
In
since
10 years.
since 19 no 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 since 1968.
Wow,
Um,
that's
yeah,
going back a ways.
I mean, I listen. I would love to see him as a Jet, and I really hope he is. But
What do
I
you think the
cannot.
percent chance now? Because I know, like, I think maybe the first episode we talked about, or maybe it was the second that of a return episode that I posed like the percentage. So like right now, I think
I said zero.
no, I think you said like maybe 1% or something like
No, I
that.
said zero because I
Really,
remember. I
I said
remember I
thirty
was.
percent, and
You did. You did. You
yes,
said something like 25 to 30. I remember saying zero,
okay.
and I did it as like a little joke type
Hmm.
delivery. Um, I'm not. I'm not going much higher than zero. I'm gonna say five. We'll say 5% chance
I'm
because
bumping up. We're going a 40% chance that Trevor Lawrence is
oh
a New York
my
Jet.
goodness! Wow. All right.
I'm listen. Each week is a tire fluctuation of emotion. This off season is such a roller coaster. Like I'm not starting to feel again because the Jets took my heart, ripped my heart out of my chest, and stabbed it when they lost to Pittsburgh. So it's kind of hard to feel anything other than humor with this team when they fall on their
Right.
face time and time again. But I'm getting excited, which I haven't been since that 2010 season. Even when in 2016, because I knew exactly how that was going to end up going in Buffalo and everything. But like whether it's last week, maybe the Jets get Russell Wilson, or the week before, maybe the Jets get Watson. Now I'm back on Trevor Lawrence, and
Wow.
it's not healthy. It's definitely not
It
healthy.
isn't.
But, but
I
we'll,
would I would I would first off maybe on break go to the neurologist. Maybe stick your head into the CAT scan machine. What have you got to lose? If you're just going to sleep and
just dive right into an MRI,
yeah
just face
yeah.
first, just smack right into an MRI machine. I'm ready, doc. Scan me. Let's see what happens.
Listen. I really I would love to see Trevor Lawrence in the green and white.
But don't you think
Fi-
Jacksonville is dumb? Are they not a
of
dumb team?
course, of course they are. They're poorly mismanaged. I don't want to say they're dumb. They're just, their owner, the Khans, have more money than God.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that Tony isn't involved in football operations. He's got his wrestling with AEW, and then he's got his soccer team over in Europe that he really pays attention to, and he lets his
Hmm.
dad take the reins on the NFL team. Um, I I don't know. I don't know, dude. I just honestly, I just think this is getting blown out of proportion. Jacksonville's just doing what they need to do. They're just doing due diligence. And, it's going to come around, and here's exactly what's going to happen. We're all going to gather at Nick Casucci's house if you do end up coming up for
Yes.
the draft. And we're all going to be out there at the grill that, takes about an hour and a half for him to even start the fire because he's got to lay each coal out individually. Then he's going to let the fire go for about a half hour
This is
before he
2 straight
starts.
weeks of taking shots at Sushi. He's
Hey,
not even on the podcast.
you know what? That's okay. He'll understand. Then he's going to take the hot dogs and sausage and burgers that we brought over that were once ice cold right from the store that have been baking in the sun
Yeah.
and start to lay them on the grill. And now at this point, the grill is at a balmy 130 degrees. So those burgers and hot dogs, that should take about 5 minutes to cook. Now take 25 minutes to cook.
It's now 5 minutes
And
till the draft.
yeah. All right, let's eat up. And we're bro, we have to watch the draft. He goes, yeah, but we gotta eat. We got plenty of time. The Jets are on the clock, dude. We got plenty of time. And we finish eating, and the Jets had just picked, and they move on to the third overall pick. And that's when we get inside to watch the draft.
Yeah.
Um,
that is
and
vision.
before we can even in all of its glory watch Trevor Lawrence get drafted to the Jets, we would have been too busy outside eating, and we'd have gotten a notification on our phones. So,
I can absolutely see that happening.
Oh man!
But I am absolutely looking forward to draft night more than in years past.
Yeah, me too. It should be a fun night, and that they got 2 picks, so it's not like
yes,
it's not like all right. 15 minutes in, Jets are done. And I watched the whole draft, but it's I don't have as much
because the Jets aren't a team to go back into the first round and make a pick.
Right.
I can't recall like ever in our watching Jets football other than when they had the 4 first rounders in 2000, like when they actually traded up back into the first round and make a selection like that. It just doesn't happen with this team. But like I said, they have 2 first round picks now. They might possibly have a third. We'll see with Darnold. So, we're just gonna have to
we'll see.
Wait and see. But
I'm sticking with my guns. Trevor Lawrence. I'm gonna up it to 5% chance. I really like your dream, Brian. I like the dream. I like your optimism. I just don't see it happening. I really just think this is nothing more than just a hype job. And listen, if I'm wrong, I'm glad to be wrong. People who will come across this, or Jet fans that come across this, maybe 3, 4, or 5 months from now, after the draft is over. Oh, Paul's a fucking idiot. Of course they're gonna do that. Hey, listen, bring it on, because I just do not see Trevor Lawrence being a New York Jet. I'm sorry.
No, I mean it's difficult to see now because of their position, because of we wouldn't have this discussion. There wouldn't have been any drama this offseason if they just would have lost, but they had to win.
Exactly.
In Jets fashion, so
but those 2 wins in late December were real character builders.
They're really important for the team. You don't want to be a part of history, that bad history. Yeah, that really matters in the end. So dumb. But anyway, moving on from that, just to wrap up the show, 2 news pieces that broke later in the week. The first is from Albert Breer reporting on the Buffalo Bills, saying that the Bills have submitted a rule change proposal to the NFL that would bar interviews for front office and coaching positions until after the conference title games and hirings until after the Super Bowl. Owners could vote on it in the offseason, would be a big change. And also, Jason_OTC, another big Jets fan. He's part of the salary cap, over salary cap website, and he quotes tweeted saying, wondering if this is in relation to Brian Dabble, the Bills' offensive coordinator reportedly getting the Chargers job and then a day or two later not getting it. Honestly, it makes all the sense in the world to push the calendar back a few weeks for everyone. And you could also make this in case in point for Eric Bieniemy too.
Well, remember we actually talked about this.
Mm,
We brought it up on the show, and I think we're both in agreement. It's only fair because it's
right.
unreal how candidates like Eric Bieniemy, who every broadcast of cheap games that are on TV, like yeah, there's Eric Bieniemy, future NFL head coach, is really got a he's got does this well, he does that well, and then the Chiefs go on a deep run, and by the time the Super Bowl's over, all the jobs are taken. The same with Dabble, and there's
Right.
going back, there's a few more candidates that you can say the same thing about. So I'm completely on board with this rule change. It levels the playing field out for everyone. It gives all coaches who are projected to get head coaching jobs a fair opportunity, and I think it's a win-win for the league
Yeah.
because a team like the
It
Texans,
extends the offseason. Like it makes
right,
the NFL longer. Like keeps the NFL in the news cycle
more
longer.
engaging, right?
Right. So like
Well,
instead of all this happening, on quote unquote like during the playoffs, like you have the playoffs to look forward to during the
right.
week, like wild card weekend and divisional rounds and championship and Pro Bowl and Super Bowl. So then the time between the Super Bowl ending and the beginning of free agency, that's a good like month or so of nothing. Nothing at all, and you have two schmucks talking about jerseys and favorite games and stuff like that because there's nothing else going on in the NFL at all. So
Right.
if you have this, you can have very qualified candidates such as Bieniemy and Dabble get their own opportunities to become head coaches and formulate a staff.
Well, even so, I'm not saying that this would have changed anything, but you look at the Texans. Deshaun Watson wanted the Texans to interview Eric Bieniemy. Now, out of what is more likely sheer incompetence, they
Hmm.
went ahead and didn't even bother. And the same thing with Robert Saleh. They didn't even interview Robert Saleh, which Deshaun wanted. But Saleh was available to interview. I mean, Bieniemy
Yeah.
wasn't. We all know Chiefs went to the Super Bowl, but could it be that they wanted to, but they just needed to fill that position? No, probably not, because I think the Chiefs are that, or excuse me, the Texans are that incompetent. But it could be a situation that a team wanted to in the past, and they just couldn't because of the way the rule structure was set up. And instead of waiting and waiting, and oh, he might not take the job, they just go with a second or third choice just to get the rebuild of their team that much quicker up and running and getting back to normal.
Yeah. It makes all the sense in the world. I don't see a negative to this like rule change, and it's honestly shocking how it hasn't been already implemented, in years prior. Um, and the other rule change that was brought up earlier today, the Baltimore Ravens, as per Albert Breer again, submitted a proposal to add a quote-unquote sky judge to games. Stationed in the press box, a sky judge would have access to all video angles and would help overturn any clear and obvious errors. The proposal has had support from coaches in the past, and this was seen in the short-lived XFL 2.0 early last year, before the COVID outbreak kind of ended that. You saw where there is um, the one ref in the press box, and you could see them. They had like the little Xbox controller or what a PlayStation controller, working around to see all the angles that the TV gets to view. It's not, and a clear judgment can be made, and I think this would definitely help. And I think they should actually go a step further and have this judged also for um, plays that are too quick to the eye for refs, specifically um, helmet to helmet plays, because we've
Right.
seen in years past where a bad looking hit, but it's clean, it's shoulder to the chest, but you just hear that clashing noise that sounds like helmets clashing together, but on replay, it's absolutely not. And then they get the flag, and that's 15 yards against the defense, and it's a clean hit, but it's too quick for refs to notice, and they only throw the flag after the fact. Having a judge there to kind of take some pressure off the refs down on the field, and have them just focus on calling offsides and false starts, and if a catch is in bounds or stuff like that. It, I can only see this as a positive, as something that could help the game.
Yeah, again, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. I got really nothing else to add there. I just think, the more eyes or cameras you have on a field, that it can ultimately help the game as far as close calls, or like you said, helmet to helmets that aren't actually helmet to helmet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd be for it. And then going back to the XFL, The Rock is now the owner of the XFL, so I would
Yes.
love to see.
Relaunching next year, 2022.
Yes, I would love to see. Kind of like, I don't know how familiar you are with the NHL minor league affiliation
And
system.
the AHL and the ECHL.
Right.
Yes.
So the AHL basically is all prospects that the NHL team has, but the ECHL, a team might have two, three, or four, of their prospects
Mhm.
on a on an ECHL team at once, and that team might be shared by three NHL teams. So you might have the Devils, the Rangers, and the Flyers have prospects on that ECHL team, and then the rest of the team is filled out by the GM down there.
Right.
I would like to see maybe
Free
the
agents.
XFL, right? Free hockey free agents, like free agents, like
Yeah.
free agents that the AHL saw and they're like, we're good. I would like to see something in that aspect with the NFL where, yes, it's its own league, but there's a partnership where they can give, NFL practice guys,
Well,
um, they can give them meaningful snaps, if you want to call it meaningful, or at
for
least
practice
game
squad, yeah,
experience,
for guys
something like that.
who aren't activated, like you mentioned before, like a Cameron Clark, giving them some experience, some pro football experience in
Right.
in the quote unquote off season, like the winter to spring months, um, for the spring league, would definitely be beneficial. That's been in the past. Excuse me. I mentioned last week with the Brooklyn Bolts of the XFL, where they kind of had a pseudo partnership with the NFL, where before some things were implemented in the NFL, like the um, moving back to field goal kicks, for the point after touchdown, point after score, from the what was it, the 25 to now it's the 35-yard line. That was started in the FXFL. The NFL wanted to see how it would work there. So things like that, and the NFL has adapted over the years from other leagues as well, as we saw with the original incarnation of the XFL with the Skycam that's now used not only in the NFL but in all sports, in NASCAR and in basketball, even like the cam that just follows like overhead and hovers and everything that you now see like on kickoffs, especially NBC, that wants to make you all disoriented from their camera work. But that started with uh, the original XFL all the way back in 2001, and the new XFL with this Sky Judge and possibly even their version of the kickoff, where like nobody moves except the returner. So it actually requires a return each time, and it's not always just a touchback taken away from the most exciting play in football. So
Hmm.
I think the NFL, with this, hopefully both of these rules pass because, as I mentioned before, it would only help the game better, impact the game overall.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. So we are winding down in the off season of the NFL.
Yes.
Free agency is a measly 12 days away. As noted by the New York Jets today, they posted a beautiful photo of Mr. Broadway Joe wearing his jersey, making a throw on the run to signify that date. So we'll see what happens. I'm definitely excited. I think Joe Douglas has got a lot up his sleeve, and like you said, there may be some prizes that come the Jets' way. But we will be here to cover it all. So, Brian,
Yep.
if you have anything else you want to add.
No, that's it. I mean, we'll be on the lookout. We didn't touch on the Wilson rumors. Apparently he's unhappy in Seattle. Teams call Seattle's call. Blah blah blah. We'll talk about that next. I mean, nothing has really changed there, especially with Watson. We're going to focus on other stuff and more Jets related stuff, like I said. So hopefully more news throughout the week, and we'll be back next week. Paul, if you want to
So,
take us out.
yes, so for Brian, I am Paul. Thank you for listening to this episode on March 5th. Follow us on Twitter at Jets Flight Path, and we will talk to you guys next week. Take care.